shared all of our stories. We've got some Q&A, and also if you guys have any questions, you can just throw them out there. So first one is, sometimes I feel like there is a ceiling in my prayer, possibly a barrier between myself and the Lord. I'm trying my best to live a holy life, but sometimes I feel like I want to deeply connect with the Lord, but I feel like I don't know how. Is this normal? How does one overcome this? I want to see him, but he's invisible. I want to hear his voice, but he is silent, yet I feel him very close. So that's the first question.
They'll say also this can be a temptation. The spiritual writers talk about their temptation will begin, I think maybe John of the Cross, I can't remember who exactly. Yeah. We get to know God, we get used to the consolation, and when God wants to take you deeper, I say, no, the consolation is not there. So you, instead of going further to where God, you want to hold on to the consolation rather than go to where the Lord is calling you to, which is probably something deeper.
Yeah.
That's the story. Remember the story of the father and the girl? Yeah. You were talking about, you recall the story of the father and the girl who was driving and the father was sitting on the passenger seat.
If you could retell us.
Yes, the girl, she was driving, her dad was sitting on the passenger seat, and there was a storm. So as she was going, the storm was heavy, other cars began to park. She was tempted to park. Her father said to her, don't stop, keep on going. She kept on going. Storm got even worse. Now even the trucks were beginning to park on the side of the road because the storm was much. Father said to her, don't stop, keep on going. She kept on going. Even the trees were falling on the road. She was tempted to park and stop. Her father said to her, don't stop, keep on going. After about 5 minutes, they busted us into bright sunlight. If she had stopped in the storm, she would have remained in the storm. Because she kept on going, she was able to experience the newness that was up there in front, just way ahead of her, rather than staying in the storm. So I relate it to like when you feel as if, oh, I'm not experiencing God. It might just be the beginning of something new, a deeper encounter than the consolation you are clinging to. But you think it's getting worse. Why is it only getting better?
Yeah, it's got quite a common experience with people. I guess this person that they've been praying, they've experienced consolation, and then they're mistaking this darkness or this kind of lack of consolation for something bad. Yeah. It's actually something really good. So I love the image of the light piercing through. Maybe it's a light that woman would have never seen before.
St. John of the Cross, I think I mentioned this earlier. St. John of the Cross said that we should make a distinction between a person who feels that way because of sin or not praying, but and there's a third one, I can't remember precisely, and a person who, despite not being held by sin, still faithful to prayer, still experiencing, that's the sign of make a distinction between a person who's passing through the dark night, somebody, because both of them can have the same encounter. One could be due to sin, but another is not.
So we do say, like, to fully answer that, maybe a spiritual director would be a good idea.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things Teresa said, the importance of having a guide for the spiritual life, we've not talked about. The importance of having somebody to help. The spiritual guide is another important thing. Otherwise, sometimes we can substitute our selfish emotions. We don't know when we might be choosing our own things rather than choosing what. So with a guide, of course, the church does that. The community does that at a larger level. But the guide also helps to prevent you taking some selfish decisions. Unknown to you, you just choose the easier path.
Okay, next question. This one's quite relevant, I think, for maybe viewers who aren't Catholic, or maybe Protestant, or atheist, or agnostic. It is for someone who's exploring whether God exists or not, whether the Catholic faith is true or not. Would you recommend them to prayer? And if so, what kind of prayer would it be? And what does that mean for them?
Jesus, he did that, right? He would use parables to connect with people. Also, St. Paul, he said, when I teach the Jews, I would, teach them in the way that they know. The Gentiles, the same thing. So connecting whatever they're interested in teaching, like bringing from Christianity what is there, and it's what they're interested in. St. John as well, because when he wrote the Gospel in Greece, I think he wanted to do it for that audience, and they're familiar with the philosophical side. That's why I think in his prologue he does it in that way, because he's also trying to connect with that audience. So similar, I think.
I'm actually recalling your story with the hat. when you told me about when you were coming to faith in Jesus, you said to me about, you said a prayer or something. And then
With the hat.
the hat. So somebody came, you asked them for a sign or something. And then,
Oh, yes. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, no, I just remembered what you mean. So I wanted, like, I had like a period of doubt, shall we say, that who I was praying to was really Jesus. And I thought, you know, there's this common belief that different religions are all the same, and that, you know, they're really all the same God. And I said, God, Jesus, I want to know for certain that this is you that I'm praying to. So I gave him some kind of scenario, and they say you shouldn't test God. And it wasn't really like a test, but it was more like, I just want to know. So I was going to go to like this Christian worship evening where different churches were getting together to like worship and pray. And I said, okay, God, when I go to this worship evening today, I'm going to wear this grey hat. And I just made up a scenario. I said, some boy in a blue shirt will take the hat off my head if this is the God that I'm praying to is you, Jesus. And so I went to this worship night, and then afterwards we all had like a meeting downstairs. All the youth sort of met together, and I was sat down, and my friend, somebody that I knew actually, was wearing a blue shirt, and he playfully ran around and took the hat off of my head. And I was like, okay. and yeah, I think that was just, I kind of wasn't expecting Jesus to answer, but he did, and I was like, wow, okay, this is awesome. Yeah, so
I love that, like, hearing the two things, because it's like, I think there's a build up to that kind of prayer, isn't it? And I went through some of the thing. I mean, I actually prayed my prayer kind of twice. The first one was like, oh God, can't you just show yourself? Well, he didn't, and I was really mad with him. And then the second time, I actually came with like humility. So I was actually really genuinely interested, because I think a lot of those prayers can be like, it's basically just saying, I don't believe you exist, and this is what would convince me otherwise. It's not really a kind of like, I could be really wrong, you know. I like that, and it just shows that God is actually quite willing to. He's extremely willing to have a relationship with everybody, isn't he? So I feel like there's only something that would stop that, and I'm quite interested what you were saying is that kind of breaking down that kind of those barriers and the misconceptions and stuff. Like, I don't know if you've had any experiences like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many things that happen that you just can't really call them coincidence anymore. Of course, so many, I can't even list them. Like, there's not one that just sticks out. It's like, nearly every day something happens. It's just.
So it sounds like for somebody who doesn't believe there's that God is very open to reveal himself, but there's also some work to be done before that, so it can be free to actually want that. Okay, so I've got the third question here. I think we've answered this kind of before. So does prayer have more of an effect in our lives than just in the time we dedicate to prayer? So I think what you were saying before about how it changes us and stuff like that.
Prayer is much more than just asking. It's much more than petition. Prayer is a relationship with someone. That's what we've basically been saying. We're having a relationship with God, by communion with Him. What comes to my mind is a funny phrase said by Saint Teresa. They said she fell from a horse, and she said, "Lord, if this is how you treat your friends, no wonder
very few friends."
And that itself is a prayer. You know, like coming to God the way we are, being able to say that to your friend. You can say that to your friend, right? So it's prayer is that way. It affects all of life. It's not just about some parts.
I have a funny story, or two funny stories with prayer being like asking for help and stuff. Well, I used to volunteer in a prison, so to help out with the prisoners and that. And it's very high security, except an ID, passport. And I forgot my passport. And I prayed and said, like, can I please get in? And my friend prayed with me, and they just didn't check. They just didn't ask me. And I was let in. And then I came out, and it happened a second time, when you were saying before about God answering prayer in a different way, I was going to France and with a group of people, and I couldn't find my passport, and then I just decided to go for it, like a photocopy. And it was just so strange. I explained this situation, and the French border guard just let me through. So, and then I rang but it was quite funny that, like, God, it's. I think sometimes, like, even asking for things and not getting your answer, it really develops that friendship as well. When he shakes us up a little bit, I think it's just God's very funny. He's very, it's good to see.